Welcome, Robin. This is the third time that we are talking kind of face to face on different podcasts. First on yours, then on 21st Capital, and now on Around the Fire with Momo, which is my personal podcast, and I go in all directions. Welcome back, and welcome back to me as a host, but welcome for the first time to my podcast. And thanks for coming on. And how was your day so far?
Really cool. It's so funny because I just listen to like marketing books and try to enhance my podcast and try to enhance the voice of Bitcoin basically. And there's this saying that you need around 11 touch points with a product, with a person, with whatever you're trying to accomplish, and on 4 different locations. So we have now, I don't know if it counts as 4 different locations. We have now 3 different locations. Maybe we meet on a conference. Then we are sold on each other, I guess. Really cool. My day was really good so far. As I told you before, I have basically my days constructed in 2 different ways. My first half of the day is quite uninteresting, quite boring, quite calm, because I mostly work with Americans and mostly work with English-speaking audience, and the English-speaking audience really gets up at 12 p.m. CET, so like Vienna time or Berlin time or Germany time, whatever makes more sense for you. And then from 12 p.m., let's say Germany time, up until 8 p.m. Germany time is like the core time where I'm awake and where I work. The German-speaking, the English-speaking audience is usually awake between like, I would say 3 p.m. Germany time till like 11 p.m. Germany time, so it's a little bit too late for me. But yeah, that's kind of how my day is structured. And in the afternoon, I have I'm appearing on other podcasts, or I'm hosting my own podcast, and I do a lot of meetings and trying to get through all that. But my mornings is reserved for work, for not for work, for strategic work, and for calisthenics, for walking, for thinking, for making calm things, breakfast and stuff like that.
Awesome, calisthenics. Can you talk about your regiments with respect to calisthenics?
Yeah, I'm just getting started with calisthenics. For me, calisthenics is really hard, and that's why I want to do it, because I'm 2 meters tall. So the taller you are, I feel like the harder calisthenics gets, because you work with your own body. If you're, I don't know, just 5 foot tall, you have a lot less body to carry if you're 6'7" or like 2 meters in my case.
Not if you are fat.
Yeah. If the body mass index is the same on both persons, but if the same body mass index on a small person and on a tall person, so they are equally fat, it's even worse for the tall person, because he has to get even more body weight up. So if you, for example, let's say we want to take a pull-up and you hang in a pull-up, the fatter you are and the taller you are, the harder it gets, because you have to carry more weight. So I also have that experiment that my legs are way better trained than my upper body, because my legs have to carry over 100 kilogram every day. I look very thin, but because I'm so tall, I have over 100 kilogram. So actually, my legs are quite nicely trained, but my upper body is not nicely trained, because I'm not walking on my hands, basically. So I'm trying to balance that out now with calisthenics. I try to do it every second day. So every other day, around 3 to 4 times a week, I'm doing it. And this turns out to be really hard for me, but it is something that challenges me, and I like things that push me out of my comfort zone and that challenges me. Also, the podcast was something that really challenged me. Now it's a second nature to me, because I'm on a podcast every single day. I'm actually on like 1.2 podcasts every single day when you count in the guest appearances and the speaker events and the conferences and stuff like that. I'm probably on like 1.2 conferences or 1.2 appearances per day. And then it gets second nature. But 2 years ago, I couldn't nicely speak online. I couldn't nicely speak in front of camera. I couldn't nicely also speak in person. It was also a little bit harder, but I was more comfortable doing that. So it's all about training, and that's what I'm trying to do now with calisthenics, getting better in shape for my upper body. So I'm not only tall, but also I have the muscles to fill the tall body.
Yeah, in English we have this beautiful expression that it is a muscle. Whenever they talk about something, they say that it's a muscle. You need to train it to work. It's really a kind of death sentence to tell yourself that, oh yeah, I'm not good at coding, and this is more directed at myself. These days I am practicing coding more often, and I'm getting out of that space that I was like, oh no, coding is not for me. But it is not a death sentence. For example, have passed 2 Python courses, and now that I am following a third one on Udemy, it's getting easier. It can get faster. I was zero, maybe really compared to someone else who picks it up very quickly. I am at a kind of disadvantage, but it is not impossible to break out of something and make something a habit for you. As you said, speaking to other people, even not recorded, was difficult for you now. Uh, I am arranging a talk with you. By the way, it's a live. Yeah, it's cool. Whatever, it's cool. And one other funny thing was that I said, yeah, I have chosen this as a title. Is that cool with you? You said that, yeah, you can even choose the title as Robin is an asshole, and that would be cool for me. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, when I was heavy, I couldn't do even one pull-up. Pull-up chin-ups were both difficult for me. When I lost about 20 kilograms of weight, for English speakers, I think it is around 40 pounds. Then doing pull-ups and chin-ups was easier for me. Still, some of the exercises I am the weakest in, I barely can reach 10. So, how do you feel about your pull-ups? And there were 2 German guys that I was following. One of them was bald. I think one of them is called Alex. Do you happen to know them? They are very famous YouTubers.
In calisthenics?
Yes.
So I only watched videos from Chris Harrier, like a
He's good.
lot back. He's really good. But right now I'm just, so I know the fundamentals, the fundamental exercises, like the progressions towards a pull-up. So you can make a pull-up, you can make a weighted pull-up, but then before the pull-up, you can also make Australian pull-ups. Basically, you can start with just a bar and get you closer to it, and then increase the angle where you go to that bar, and at some point you can do a pull-up. Maybe you can start with jumping pull-ups and then the negative side of the pull-ups, which is the natural progression of it. So I know those progressions, and I know those exercises that you can do from Australian pull-ups up until a weighted pull-up, or like a pull-up with your feet up and stuff like that. I forgot how it's called. So I know those fundamentals.
Pull-up, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, and now it's just about, for me, it's not just about getting the exercises, the core exercises right, and getting those to be as good as possible. And then just when I hit like 15 to 20 good reps, like really fine technique, then I move up to the next one. So pull-ups, I maybe can do right now 2 to 3 good ones, like really from like the passive dead hang position completely down to completely up with chin above the bar, because like you can cheat and do just like those pull-ups, but like getting from all the way up dead hang and then all the way up, that's like a so I'm not trying to get as many reps as possible. I'm trying to get as many beautiful reps as possible, and always looking at the technique first and then the quantity of it. And yeah, it's really it's so fun. I never talk about that online anywhere, so it's really fun to talk about that now, because I do it almost every day now for a few weeks now. So I have a lot to learn, but I'm on my way. So maybe in 1-2 years you not only hear me talk about it, but hopefully you see also the results of it.
Yeah, a 2 meter tall guy with a shredded belly. Yeah, and about calisthenics and stuff. Yeah, you started with something very interesting to me. Yeah, I also do negatives at the end. So and when I am doing the negatives, I go to the point that I am crying. These days, I am a bit more diligent with that, and I am trying to go to the gym more diligently. And I have gone back to my steak diet. I was a carnivore, but steak makes a huge lot of difference. Have you tried carnivore diet? I am 100% sure you might have had so many of the guests over who are Bitcoiners and also carnivores.
I don't know. I like fruits and vegetables. That's the thing. I eat meat. I eat all of it. So I'm neither a carnivore nor a vegetarian. But I do honestly like vegetarian dishes a lot. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's wrong, but it feels better. It's just. We always say like the bodies of each and every one is different, and maybe that's right, maybe not, I don't know. But what I've encountered is that with a light, high protein plant-based diet, I'm feeling really good. I do still eat meat on a regular basis, probably every week, but I like vegetables. I like my fruits. I like those things. They taste good. It feels good in the body. It's lightweight. I sometimes feel a little bit heavy after eating too much meat. I don't know if you encounter the same thing, but if I eat a lot of meat, I feel very heavy afterwards. Maybe my stomach is just not made for meat, but it's very delicious. I like a good steak, but I don't have steak every day, unfortunately.
When we meet, we will go for a steak, definitely. And when you eat meat only, I can say, I'm not trying to be convincing or anything, uh, or evangelizing, just sharing my own experience. Eating meat alone is different from eating meat in conjunction with other things. For example, if I eat meat with potato, meat with bread, for example, in a burger, in a pizza, that I really love. I really love pizza. So that's one of my weak spots, sweet spots, soft spots, actually. But after eating something like that, I would feel heavy, or even after meat and potatoes, I would feel heavy. After eating only steak, salted steak, I can even do handstand to wall, and I do not feel anything coming into my mouth, nothing. So when it is only meat, that does make a difference and you feeling that it is something heavy. You even tend to get less sleepy afterwards. That's what I have experienced, and yeah, I of course accept that other people might have different reactions or something.
I think I'm always a big fan of sticking to the basics. When we talk about finance, it's like, oh, like save in a hard money and try to have every month more money in than money out. But there's also with diet basics that almost everyone, no matter if you're plant-based, carnivore, whatever you are, you agree to. The basics are no processed foods. Like no matter if you eat carnivore or you eat vegan, you should not eat processed foods. You should not eat sweets. You should not eat those things. So there are some truths that go through diet, no matter where you belong in the carnivore or vegan. And there's actually I didn't when you read through Twitter, you have the feeling that Bitcoiners eat a lot of meat, and there's only those kind of things. But I had some podcasts around carnivore diet, and I had also a podcast with Matthew Lusiak, who wrote the Fiat Food book, and we talked a lot about carnivore and eating meat. I got so many comments saying like, "Oh, I'm a true Bitcoin and I'm vegan, or I'm plant based, or I like my vegetables and stuff like that." So there's a a really a big group also in Bitcoin. So it's an interesting topic. I might even make a debate. I have yet to find some really cool Bitcoiner, like a big one that is advocating for plant-based. So I don't know if there is one that I overlooked till now, but I would love to make a debate actually on that. I think that would be really cool to see two Bitcoiners debating diet, because I think those topics that are adjacent to Bitcoin but not directly pointing towards Bitcoin are really fun to talk about, like diet and sports and all those things. So if I find someone, if in the audience is someone that really likes to debate people on vegan and why it's better than carnivore, I would love that. I think it's easy to find someone that argues for carnivore. I will probably find a few guests that do that. So maybe I host a debate on that. It would be fun, I think, for the Bitcoiners.
Yeah, so it's an open invitation to our vegan friends, our vegan Bitcoiner friends, or even maybe vegetarians. So we can have a conversation, have a very respectful conversation to learn more. And I would be, I would volunteer for the carnivore debater, and I'm looking at it as an opportunity to learn more and hone my arguments. That would be cool. And calisthenics again, something that comes to my mind. From what I understand, you're living in Austria, right? No
Yes.
difference in temperature, not much difference from where I live in Poland. So these days it's sunny, but how about the other days of the week? Where do you do calisthenics? Do you go to the gym to do it, or do you go to open parks?
Outside, there's so many great calisthenics park in Vienna. It's literally like, no matter where you live in Vienna, you can probably find within a 5-minute running distance a calisthenics park. So I've been to a lot of different places in Vienna. I've seen the map, the calisthenics map, and you can find a lot of them. Like I can choose between, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 calisthenics parks that I could go to. Some are smaller, sometimes some are bigger. Sometimes it's like integrated with an overall playing ground that I don't like, because then there's sometimes children there and the environment is not as good. But there are ones that are also a little bit more cut off. So there's really a great way. But the temperature is an interesting one, because in winters it's getting really cold. So I usually have like 1 to 2 months where I cannot work out outside, where I try to do swimming inside or go to the gym. But then now I'm training outside since like 1.5 months, because if it's not too cold, it's fine. It's sometimes it's raining, that does not make any difference for me at all. If it's raining, and if it's a little bit colder, it's okay. You can put things on.
Yeah, and in that regard, maybe you have encountered this, the Wim Hof method. He has a kind of breathing technique, and what I found very effective in raising your resistance against cold is the cold showers. It has helped me a lot. And on my Instagram, if you scroll down way back, you will find some videos of me doing exercises at a calisthenics park near my previous flat, and it's snowing, and I'm doing some parallel push-ups and probably also chin-ups and different moves in the snow. So you will see those, and this Wim Hof method helped me. Still, that difficulty of calisthenics, sometimes the transitions get very, very difficult. For example, from getting from a squat to a pistol squat is a world of difference. From a push-up to a single-handed push-up, it's a world of difference. That is something that kind of encouraged me to go to the gym. That was one thing that drove me that way. But I see many successful people who can stick to calisthenics and do amazing things like muscle ups. I hope to see you doing all those stuff.
Yeah, muscle up. I'm still at 0, but I would love to do one. And there's the great thing with calisthenics, you can always make progressions. So yes, there's a lot of difference between a normal squat and a pistol squat, but you can make assisted pistol squats where you help yourself with the arm somehow. So you can always find somewhere an assistance with bands or with a lot of different things where you can make step towards that. And this is something, this is the thing that makes it so fun for me, because there are kind of levels to calisthenics. Can you do this? Okay, you cannot do this, so you're in this level. How many on this level you can do? And if you have enough repetitions in that level, you can level up in that way. So I did a gym for a long time, for like 1-2 years. It also was fun. And you have your different exercises, and then you just progress with a little bit more weight and a little bit more weight, and you can be way more granular with it. So you can like put like 2 kilograms more, 1 kilogram more. You can be really granular with it. But I like the aspect of working with my own body. And gym is really effective in building muscles, but it's not as fun for me. It's not as exciting for me and pushing me as much. Gym feels like I go there to train a specific muscle, and calisthenics feels more like it's more connected to nature for some reason. It feels more in that way. It might just be the more Bitcoiner way to do it, but it's just projecting my own values onto Bitcoin, which is usually a mistake.
No, not the mistake. That's the lens that we are wearing these days, and that's what brings us together. I love that. Yeah, that calisthenics, you do everything with your own body, and the progressions really take the boringness out of it. With weight training, you can add 1 kilo, half a kilo, as you said. You can be really granular with it, but with calisthenics, you need to do studies. You need to really do your homework to see what progression works the best for you and what progression is correct. You have to give them a go to see which one you can do at the current stage and still build muscle and still push yourself, what combinations to make for yourself. So that really makes it a kind of not boring at all, and a very kind of full of variety exercise regimen.
But I think it's hard. So I think
Yes.
there are not a lot of people. If you ever found someone that does calisthenics for multiple years, they usually look really shredded. Like they usually look really good, because it takes a lot of discipline to stick with it, because it's just it's so raw and so hard. And most of them also train outside, and it's like cold, and then like people walk next to you, and there are sometimes where you work outside, and then there's like little kids playing at the calisthenics park. It's just not. So you have to push yourself mentally a lot more, that I found, with calisthenics than with just going to the gym, because in the gym there's the perfect environment. There's all people in there that already train. It's like the perfect environment to do exactly what you're supposed to do in the gym. You don't go in there to drink coffee and scroll on your phone. I mean, I saw people doing that in some gyms when there's like launch areas and stuff like that, but that's not the kind of a gym I would go to. And the calisthenics park, there's just your nature and your environment, and a lot of things you don't even need a park for that. A lot of things you could actually just do at home, or just go in a forest and do those things. Find somewhere where you maybe can reach up to a branch of a tree and just make pull-ups there. So that's what I really like about calisthenics also. I can literally do that wherever I am. If for example, I go next week actually to my first conference this year. I made a 3 to 4 months pause of conferences, and now the next 8 months I have every month 1 or 2 Bitcoin conferences, starting with next week. And next week I'm in Switzerland. Then 3 weeks after that I'm in Dublin. Then a week after that I'm in Las Vegas. Then 3 weeks after that I know 2 weeks after that I might be in Barcelona. That's not fixed yet. And then a week after that I'm in Prague, and it just continues like that. If I'm just in a gym, I have to find a gym in all those locations, which would be costly. And I probably would just not do it, or I do it in a hotel or something like that. But with calisthenics, you can just go outside, find a calisthenics park in the environment, which in most cities there are calisthenics park, and do your normal routine there. Or if you don't have a calisthenics park, you can do a lot of exercises in the hotel room, like just do incline push-ups, move a chair and do put your legs on the chair and your hands on the floor and do push-ups. If you want to go higher, you can put you can do a handstand push-up on the wall. Like you will find a wall somewhere, do a handstand push-up. So you can do a lot of things with calisthenics, just in your room, in your hotel room, in your living room. But best case, of course, is if you are outside at a calisthenics park, and it is really cool if there are more people around you. Sometimes there is calisthenics park that are a little bit further out of the city, and there are always like 2-3 people that also work out, and this is really motivating because then there are a few people and you can help each other and you can give yourself tips, and it's like a community. So I like that aspect of calisthenics. It's almost like a small club there.
Yeah, definitely. You make me miss calisthenics, man. Yeah. And the rest of your day, when I was coming on your podcast, you had slots for twice per day for guests to come on your podcast. So is that the rate at which you go, that every day you aim at recording 2 podcasts? And the number of your podcasts, how many are there? I think you have surpassed so many other people in the space who have been podcasting for several years even.
Yeah, I'm closing down on 500 podcasts. And I do usually, I have to be really flexible with my schedule. So usually I do 2 to 3 per day, plus 1 external one. So a maximum is for me 4 recordings in a day. For example, today I only have yours and 1 for me. So I only have 2 recordings today. Yesterday I had 3. Tomorrow I'll have 3. And I now record only from Tuesday to Friday. That gives me Monday, Saturday, and Sunday to kind of take a step back and not think about the recordings, but do other things around the podcast. I'm writing on my book, which helps me get better in being a host, getting more interesting as being a host and a speaker, with more information that comes in my head, but also helps me just sort my thoughts and get it out there. And yeah, if there's a valuable book coming out in the end, I might even publish it. But the main purpose right now, the main intention behind that is just like sorting my thoughts and getting on paper. So this is really cool now because I have now 4 days of recording. I usually do 2 to 3 recordings per day. So I usually have between 8 to 12 recordings in a week, which gives me a buffer in case there's a week coming where I cannot record. For example, when I'm in Vegas, I will not record any podcasts for a whole week because I'm in a conference. I might do in-person podcasts, but I might also not do that. So I want to build like a buffer towards that. Yeah, that's basically my schedule.
Awesome. And let's go more to Bitcoin and some of the very common questions that would come up. I know that your background was in IT security, and what is your go-to answer when someone talks about quantum computers and Bitcoin?
There's 2 things. The first thing is, yes, we have to care for that. It's a threat that might be very valid in the future. So it's not something that we should just swipe away and say, oh, it will never be dangerous. It won't be anything that we don't care about. it might just be a threat to Bitcoin. So, and there are already solutions and proposals out there, and way smarter people to talk on that topic than I can ever be, and that gives me a lot of hope that we can actually move towards that, if that ever comes to be a threat. The second part is, if you talk to a lot of experts in the field, they all tell you it's not tomorrow. It's a threat that does not come right around the corner, but we have to be aware of that. And the big thing is with quantum computers is, why would they attack Bitcoin if there are so many other systems, like every other system, that's an easier target with more monetary value in them? The fiat system is way, way less secure than the Bitcoin system. Why? If I have a quantum computer that can break all the algorithms, can break all the things, why would I choose Bitcoin to break into if it's way more secure and way harder to crack than any bank account, any other system that I can just get probably more money out of in the total, because there's a lot more money in fiat still than in Bitcoin, a lot more. So why would I even attack Bitcoin in the first place? So there's also a game theory aspect to it. But at some point, Bitcoin will be bigger, and the target will be just way more attractive. So we have to already think about that. And there are great people. I think Bitcoin Mechanics is his name. I might confuse him with someone else, but I think he is really good on that topic. And there are like 3-4 other people that are really good and have good proposals and stuff like that are on the technical level just way better than me. I worked in IT security, but I worked on the economic side of IT security. So I was not a hardcore coder. I was not a hardcore developer of cryptographic stuff and things like that. But I did have some rudimentary understanding of software development because I learned that in school. But I'm not an IT security expert per se.
Yeah, and the comparison between Bitcoin and your central bank is that with Christine Lagarde and Jerome Powell, they would set the password with all their accesses, the name of their mistress or lover, plus the year of their birth with one special character. So that is way easier to crack, and even the cryptography there is much easier to crack. And there are so many people who have access to those data with a low security hygiene. But with your Bitcoin, ideally only you have access to it and not the whole network is compromised. And it is, as you said, it is going to happen in steps. It's a real threat. The algorithms are out there, and people might even smarter people might come up with even more efficient algorithms. We shouldn't just sleep on that, but it is not that we have left it, we are not thinking about it, and that there are not solutions for it now being developed. Yeah.
Any time in history when there's a technology that is, like I say, a fork in the road of human civilization, like electricity was, like the printing press was, like all those great innovations were, there's a lot of resistance against that because it poses a big change to society. We all remember those memes where, or that actual thing that happens, but is now a meme in Bitcoin, the anti-electricity FUD. There were people saying, "Oh, electricity is bad. It will kill your kids. Electricity will microwave the whole world. Electricity is so bad." The same thing happened with all the other technology advancements. The internet was a big controversial stuff. It's still controversial. There are still people that say, "Oh, the internet is really bad. We should go back before the internet. We should go back out of electricity," which will never happen, by the way. But there's always a resistance coming up. And it's so funny to watch how something new has to be perfect, and the old incumbent system is not getting questioned at all. Nobody asks, hey, is my bank account quantum resistance? Like, nobody asked that. Nobody asked, is my Amazon account resistance against that? But we asked that with Bitcoin, with the most secure network there is in the whole world. There we ask it. Like, why do we do that? We should ask the insecure, the unsecure systems, the IT systems that there are already, that have no security at all, are completely centralized, are controlled, as you said, with username and password somewhere, with two-factor authentication. And we all know from IT security, the biggest threat is not a technology threat. The biggest threat is the human being. Like,
Exactly.
you can make a huge wall and make it really, really secure. But if the guard that holds the key to that wall just lets you in, it doesn't matter how big of a wall you build. And that's the thing where we should focus on. We should educate people on how to not fall for Bitcoin tricks, and how to not, because that happens on probably an almost daily basis, that someone loses their Bitcoin, loses their money, loses other cryptos probably even, because they haven't been educated on scams. There are so many impersonators from me. There's so many impersonators from all the Bitcoiners out there that talk to the people every day, and they're still trying they're still managing to fund themselves with those scams. So I think we first should fix the social aspect of the IT security thing, and we should talk about how bad the security of Amazon, of Google, of the fiat system is, and how great the security is on Bitcoin. And yes, we should be critical, and yes, we should be saying, hey, we should upgrade the code at some point to make it resistant. But this is not a discussion we have to have, that we have to do now. It's a discussion that the discussion is already happening, but it's not an action step that we have to take now. So this is the one thing. And the other thing, as I said, when such an invention comes and it gets questioned by the incumbent system, it's natural to do that. Electricity had gone through that, the internet had gone through that, and all the innovations have gone through that. But it's important to note that it's inevitable. Like, you have electricity comes in, and the person that has electricity has an extreme advantage over the person that does not have electricity. It's the same thing with gunpowder. If you come to a fist fight with a gun, you win that fight because you can shoot the other people. They can be really muscular, they can be fast, they can be whatever they can be. You can just shoot them. The same thing can happen with electricity. If you are the only town in the whole country that has electricity, you will be the most prosperous town in the whole country. If you are the only town that sets on a Bitcoin standard, you will be the most prosperous town in the whole country. The same thing with all technology. You have to embrace it, or you will get left behind. And there's still places without electricity in this world. There's still places without internet in the world, and there are still places without the Bitcoin in the world. So we have a lot of education to do. We have a lot of building infrastructures to do. And we are on a good way to get there. But the resistance is normal, and those who buy into those resistance FUD that technology always gets, he will also get left behind.
Yeah, and there are so many more advanced techniques of scamming people that comes along. Right, the previous session on previous live, I was talking to Zia, and he was talking about the pig butchering scam. It's a new scam. Maybe you have already received messages on Telegram like that someone writes to you, instead of saying, "Hey Robin," they say that, "Hey Dave, I just arrived at the airport. Come pick me up," or something like that. And then, "Oh, I know it was a mistake," and they start to make a personal connection with you. And after some time, uh, if you want a video call, they would even do the video call with you. Voice message, do you receive the voice message, so you are sure about the gender of the other person on the person on the other end of the line. And it might take 3 months for them to launch the attack, and then they don't attack you directly. They first say that, oh, there is this crypto on Coinbase, or you can make this account on Coinbase, transfer money like that, which is legit. Coinbase, with all the criticisms, it works. And it's not a scam for that person, at least. And that is beneficial to that person. But then they will introduce a website to you that is their own, and it is a total scam. So they are a kind of low time preference generation of scammers that are coming in, and we need to be really careful about them, especially with the rise of AI. They might even not need a person on the other end, and they would use voice changers or image producers to give you the illusion that you are talking to a human.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never got that one. I always get job offers on Telegram. Like
Job off. Oh yeah, job offers. I
here
think
for
LinkedIn is to blame for that.
yeah, it's so annoying. You get so many messages. I got the scam that Larry Lepard fell for, and I think even Lynn Alden also. I'm not sure. The one where you get invited to an interview of Bloomberg or something like that, and then you open like Google Calendar, and then there's some weird scam going on where you give the rights to the tool, and it's really nicely done actually from Twitter, and then they can tweet in your name. I got that, I think, already like 7 times, but yeah, I saw it because I saw it before Larry. I don't know if I would have fallen for it because it was really sketchy and very different to all other interview invites, but especially if you're such a busy person like Larry Lepard and you just go quickly through messages, you can fall for that very easily, very, very easily and quickly also. So the scams are getting good. They know who to target and they know how to target them. And yeah, be aware of anything going on, and before clicking on a link, like just double check it, or use some sandbox, or after you click a link, see what you're actually agreeing on, because it was not the scam with Larry. So from what I've seen is they clicked on a link and nothing was wrong. Then an app that was seemingly Google Calendar wanted to have access to Twitter, but it was not the actual Google Calendar. It just looked really good like Google Calendar. And then you click on it, and then you gave their application the right to post on your Twitter. So Larry's Twitter did not get hacked. He granted the attackers access to post on their Twitter. And then they posted a lot of weird things. Then Larry got banned from Twitter because Twitter was like, oh, like, what is he posting? So the whole story. But I think it should teach us that we should be really careful of social engineering. That's the most IT security things would be solved if we would eliminate social engineering. If social engineering is zero, like nobody would fall for those things, which will never be accomplished. But if it would be to zero, IT security would be so easy. That's why there are so many courses, so many offerings out there to defend yourself against social engineering, because they are just so good and they reach the right people. And it's a numbers game, you know, like you can write like 500 people with one scam, or maybe like 5,000 people, and you only need, let's say, 10 to fall for it. You don't need, most people don't fall for it. Most people actually are clever and don't fall for it, or are aware in that situation and don't fall for it. But those 5% or 2% that fall for it, it's already a profit. They already make the money back. So that's why they are so successful, because they don't need a lot of people to fall for it.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
with respect to Bitcoin, when I came into Bitcoin, one of the strangest things that I had to come into terms with was that there are 12 words on one line. And those 12 words were the key to recover my Bitcoin. And I think I on purpose removed my Bitcoin wallet and I restored it from that. It was Electron wallet, my first wallet, to just see how those 12 words work, because I was very much used to having a username and password. And the fact that I hadn't made a username and password on Electrom's website, I was like, wow, where is my Bitcoin? So that was one of the strangest things that I had to deal with from the start. And it made more and more sense to me over time. Of course, there are still aspects of it that I don't understand, aspects of mining that I do not understand. What were the strangest things in Bitcoin when you encountered it for you?
Self-custody was completely new to me. I never was able with anything where I can put my financial energy and actually have it myself. Before I had stockbrokers, I had a bank account, I had all those other things. And there are things like real estate. A lot of people say, oh, I can own my real estate. No, you own a paper that says that you are allowed to live there or rent it out and stuff like that. But it can be taken away from you really easily. There has to be just one judge saying, oh, it's not your home anymore. And if you don't agree, there's policemen coming to your house and get you out there. So you don't really own your home. You don't really own any stocks. You don't really own anything other than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the only thing that you can store in your head, and they cannot even get it out by force. They cannot shoot it out of you. If they could torture you, but it's still your choice if you give it to them or not. And this concept was so far away from me, so foreign to me, that it was really hard for me to grab how big of an invention this is for mankind. What will that change if all of a sudden we cannot, there's no central authority over finances, over money? You immediately think about war. You immediately think about breaking in and stealing things. You immediately think about all those things, because all of the sudden the responsibility is not at a centralized authority like a bank or a government. The responsibility is at the individual level. You remove the responsibility you move the responsibility basically down from the government, from the big banks, from the institutions, down to the individual level. And really interesting, if that concept is so popular, if that comes through all of the internet, if it's not just money, because right now it's just money where we have that possibility. Yes, you can say with social media we also have Nostr now, but most people are not yet on Nostr. I mean, you can also make that argument with Bitcoin, but we really need that concept to go through all of society, to take the responsibility back from the big institutions towards the individual. This will be an awesome future. I'm not sure if it happens. I'm sure with Bitcoin that it happens. I'm not sure if the rest of the internet is so passionate about self-custody that they will actually adopt it, even though it might mean it's not as convenient as a centralized thing. If we get a self-custodial social media app that's more convenient and has a better network effect than the centralized ones, then it wins. I'm not sure if that's the case, because with Bitcoin we have a financial incentive to adopt it. If there wouldn't be number grab technology, Bitcoin industry would be like 1/100th of the size. Like if Bitcoin only would make transactions secure across borders without the number grab technology, almost everyone wouldn't be here. I would never came to Bitcoin. I probably would still not be in Bitcoin. There's people that would be in Bitcoin still, also for that. But the number go up technology, the inflation hedge, this is the one thing that gets people in. So we have to figure out how we can have a big enough incentive for social media apps, for all the data apps, for all the other things, to have a big enough incentive for people to take their control from the institutions down to the individual level. I'm not sure this exists. I'm not sure we come to that future. I'm sure we come to that future in Bitcoin and with money, because the incentives are correct. The game theory is playing out. And that concept was completely new for me, and I'm still fascinated by it. I'm still fascinated by Nostra also. I'm still fascinated by what implication does that have for society when all of a sudden you have a key and you can lock that key in your brain and nobody can take it away from you. Like, how crazy is that we have that now, and what implications does that have on society long term? So that was probably the biggest thing that I had to wrap my head around it. Of course, there were technical challenges, but I jumped over them. There were other things that I had to tackle. For example, I thought inflation is good for society. I really thought like inflation is good to prosper small companies and stuff like that. I couldn't be further away from the truth there. So I had to jump over that hoop and realize that the natural state of the economy is deflationary, and inflation means that we are manipulating nature. And this is the bad thing. So that was another big hoop. And that's probably the two big things that I really had to get. Why is it good that we have deflation? And and how crazy it is that we have the possibility to take your own money in your own hands and nobody can F with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone who opened my mind to it was the great Jeff Booth. He explained it in very comprehensible terms. I listened to him first on who is that guy? I don't remember his name. He had a series, and he has interviewed Sailor too, and he's very famous. Do you by any chance?
Robert Breedlove?
Yes, Robert Breedlove. Yeah. I listened to his series on Robert
I can
Breedlove.
read your mind.
Yeah, you read it better than me. The name wasn't there, the face was there, but you read it. Yeah, so he really opened mind to that, and I think I have already said that to you too. That the guy who killed the last leftist cells in my body was Jeff Booth. So it made me a full um, free market believer. And one of the interesting things is that even if you consider that everyone is on a Bitcoin standard and it has 100% adoption, that's a direction that I would like to go. There are so many directions I can take from what you just explained, but let's go this way. Even if everyone accepts Bitcoin, there is still room for Bitcoin to grow. Why? Because you cannot increase the amount of Bitcoin, and over time, human productivity increases. Entrepreneurs find more productive ways to do things that used to require so much resources and energy and material, and they are doing it at a lower cost with a higher efficiency. So the cost will go down over time. So if something costs you one Satoshi on a 100% Bitcoin standard, it's going to cost you 1.5 Satoshi 1 year later because of thanks to new innovations. So Bitcoin increasing in value is not just a function of increase in the number of people that use it. It is going to be true for a long time because we are now at 2%, 4% adoption. Maybe when what we call adoption is even Bitcoin on exchanges, which I don't call adoption. We are still in the beginning of the way, But there's a long way to go, and even in that day we are going to have deflation rather than inflation, and nobody can open your eyes to that idea better than Jeff Booth, and I'm thinking of bringing him on, hopefully. And about Bitcoin, hyper Bitcoinization, what are your thoughts on that? When it's when it's going to happen, or if it's going to ever happen?
It's out of question that it will happen. The cat is out of the bag. So it is no longer a question if we come to a Bitcoin world. It's a question of how fast we will get there, how violent or peaceful we will get there, and how will the way to that future will look like. There's no question in mind that the future monetary standard is a sound monetary standard. There's absolutely no question in my mind for that. And there's also no question that I think the real adoption of Bitcoin is not at 2, 3, 4, 5%. It's probably under 1%. Because those people who now have Bitcoin, only a handful of those actually live on a Bitcoin standard. A lot of people counted in the 3, 4, 5% adoption, they have 1,000 euros, maybe 5,000 euros on Coinbase. And they have a 100,000 euro portfolio somewhere else. That they didn't adopt Bitcoin standard. They are diversifying their portfolio a little bit. So I wouldn't count them in the statistics of they adopted a Bitcoin standard. If we raise the standard of what it is that it is that you have a Bitcoin standard, I think we are way down, and we have like 0.1, 0.5% adoption, something ridiculously low. If you asked, if you go about and say like, and you interview the whole world, let's say you interview the whole world and you ask everyone a set of questions. And first, everyone stands up and everyone is standing. And you ask the question, please sit down if you have some exposure to Bitcoin. 97% of the room would sit down because we are at around 3% adoption, let's say. Then if you ask the question, okay, who holds their own keys? Another 97% of that 3% is sitting down. Absolutely. Then you ask the question, who has more than 80%, let's say more conservative, who has more than 50% of their net worth, of their liquid net worth in Bitcoin? So not counting your own home, not counting anything else, like just your liquid net worth. Like another 50% are sitting down. So that's what I mean with we are at under 1% adoption. I'm quite sure about that. What does this mean then? What does this mean if you're sure about that we are under 1% adoption and you're sure about that we reach a sound money standard? This means we probably have a 200x from here, what Bitcoin can do. This means we are so freaking early that if you tell this to people that are not Bitcoiners, they think you're crazy. And it's the crazy ones that change the world. I think Steve Jobs said that once. It's the crazy ones that think so far ahead and think about so crazy ideas that other people don't even want to listen to you because it's so far-fetched. So I'm also recommending, if you talk to people outside of Bitcoin, don't tell them that Bitcoin will 200x, because they will see the $100,000 price and they're like, okay, let's 2x that. That is 200,000. Let's put a zero behind it. That's 2 million. Let's put another zero behind it. It's 20 million. No way Bitcoin is going to 20 million. Yes, it's going to 20 million. It's going to 50 million. It's going to 200 million, because the US dollar and the euro and all the rest of the fiat will at some point be worthless against Bitcoin. So we'll reach all the price points from 100,000 to infinity. Like everyone, like a Satoshi can be worth $1 billion. It won't be measured in that way, because if a Satoshi is $1 billion, nobody cares about the dollars anymore. So the point is, we are so early in that game. We are so early in the adoption that people have a hard time figuring out how this will change the world. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm 100% sure that we will get there. I'm 100% sure that it's the right move to be all in this community. And I'm just now figuring out how we will actually get to that future. And I'm looking at the history right now. I'm looking at the printing press, the steam engine, the electricity, the electronic telegraph, the transistor, the internet technology, like all those historical examples, and see how did they change society and what impact Bitcoin will have onto our society. If you look, for example, at something very easy, what is very easy to understand also, it was very, very easy also for me to understand when I first heard it, the printing press. It's also very famous, in my opinion, within Bitcoin. Before the printing press, most people couldn't read. Most people couldn't write. And those people who could controlled how information spread, because those were the only people that spreaded information. Then there were also people that read out loud on sessions. So they controlled also what's being said and what's being delivered. Then there were the church, and they basically had a monopoly on information. And this basically gave a very small group of people the control of how information is processed and how information goes to other people. And the interesting thing now is that it took a long while to make one book. So there is a person that has to sit down and write. Let's take the Bible, because that's what Johannes Gutenberg was his first project with the Bible. This Bible that he printed had 1,200 and something sides. 1,200 sides. You have to sit down and write it line by line, page by page. Imagine how long a human being needs to write one of those books. There are estimates around a few months, maybe a little bit over a year, how long one human being works on that book. Johannes Gutenberg, with his invention of the printing press, managed in the first 5 years of his invention to print 180 copies. In that same time frame, if he would just write the Bibles, he could maybe do like 5, probably more like 2, because you also have to write it very nicely. So you have to make a nice copy. So this already accelerated innovation a lot. But the more interesting thing is what happened over the next 50 years. Like, who cares about the first 5 years? It's just like small innovation. It's like sparkling a little bit. That's what we are seeing now with Bitcoin. But over the next 50 years, only in Europe, there were over 20 million books. We went from one book takes around a year to 20 million books in 50 years. And I don't even know how many books we are now producing on a daily basis, probably like 1 million per day or something like that, with all the ebooks and the small things. So, and this made people realize they have to read, they have to write. This enabled a lot of revolutions. This enabled innovation. This enabled all sorts of other things. And then you come back to Bitcoin. What if we don't fix knowledge, like the printing press fixed knowledge? What if we fix money? What if we fix the most fundamental thing of our lives, the thing that we all use? There are people that never read a book. Like, there are people like that. But there are rarely people that never touched money. Like, most people have touched money in some sort of sense. If I would now, if let's say there are, let's say there's a full Austrian audience, like when we asked everyone in Austria, who here has touched money? Like, most of them would say, yeah, of course I touch money. Even if you are even if you live on the street, you probably have interacted with some sort of money at some point. So this is something that touches every human being on Earth, and every human being on Earth needs that. Like every human being on Earth needs Bitcoin. How gigantic that opportunity is and how gigantic the impact on society is really hard to grasp. And that's what I'm currently doing with my book. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What can we learn from the past, combining with the knowledge we have already on Bitcoin, and how this will impact society? Like I've no clue. I've not come to a conclusion yet, but it's just that's what I'm really passionate about right now. And I forgot actually your initial question. I was going on for so long that I forgot what you were actually asking. But I hope I kind of answered it.
I was asking the future of Bitcoin, how it is going to be on hyperbitcoinization. And you said, actually, it was totally answered with some extra points. And as a kind of quick digression, we are going to answer this question from our audience, Radar BTC. Maybe 80% of Bitcoin users will never hold their own keys, and that's fine. Even if they hold JP Morgan tokens, 25% backed by on-chain verified BTC, that's good. What is your opinion on that? After this, we will continue our discussion about the future of Bitcoin.
I do think so. Actually, I'm still a little bit. I'm not 100% sure on that topic, but I have a hard time thinking that everyone will hold their own keys and it will be natural, at least in the medium term. There might be a long-term future where, let's come back to the book example. The invention of the printing press forced people to learn how to read and write. And maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin forces people to take responsibility, to forces people to learn about public-private key management. That's my hopeful answer. That's my optimistic answer. But this will take a very long time, just as it did with the printing press. It was not within like, oh, we invented the printing press. 5 years later, everyone can read and write. No, still today, there are a lot of people on the earth that cannot read and write. Even in progressed societies, in developed societies, there are a lot of people that still cannot read and write. Even in Austria, and even in the Western society, there are still people that cannot read and write. But it is mainstream. Like, you can write, I can write, you can read, I can read. And most of the audience probably can read and write. So what we have actually come to know when we look at the history, inventions forces us to think and behave differently. And what if, for example, big companies all of a sudden discover self-custody? And I talked actually about that with Michael Saylor on my podcast. What if Apple encounters Bitcoin self-custody? What if Apple comes in and says, we want to be the hardware wallet providers for all of you because we think Bitcoin is the future. And all of a sudden, your iPhone is a key, your Apple Watch is a key, your MacBook is a key, your iPad is a key, your Siri device, this HomePod thing, is a key. And if you hold 3 of your, let's say, 6 Apple devices that you have together, you can sign a transaction offline. And the signing thing happens on the device, offline, right in a hardware wallet. Like, the treasure is built into the Apple iPhone. I don't know. I'm not predicting that this will happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that can happen. And the BitKey, for example, is a great example of how future self-custody could look like. That's very easy for everyone to use. Because yes, we know BitKey. If you're really fully self-sovereign and you want to get it in your own hands, I personally don't use a BitKey. You have different solutions. but this is a solution that I can give to my granddad. And he can figure out the phone, he can figure out the bit key. And if he can figure out that, we probably come up with even easier things to do. And key management might be something very easy in the future, where you just have to choose how sovereign you want to go. So you have different solutions where maybe an iPhone and your Apple Watch together is a key, and you need both of them. Additionally, with your MacBook, to have a 2 out of 3 multi-sig setup, and if you hold two together, you can sign a transaction. That's probably not the most secure, but it's a nice, easy solution, and it will be amazing in the Apple ecosystem. But then if you really want to be fully sovereign, you only use open source hardware and software, where you can verify everything yourself. Everything is, oh gosh, how is that word called? Air-gapped. Everything is air-gapped, so you don't connect it to your online devices. You don't connect, like, you can go way more sovereign with it. But not everyone will be on the most sovereign end of the spectrum. Some will be at the Apple level. Some might even have a Bitcoin wallet and at the Bitcoin bank. There will be Bitcoin custodians that will be around. How big the percentage will be from how many people have their own keys versus how many people give someone else the keys to keep them will be determined by how necessary it is to keep your own keys, how much trust in this is in these institutions, but also it will be determined by how convenient is it to hold your own keys, and what's the trade-off there. So I cannot tell you all the answers here, but this is how I think, big picture, how self-custody will scale in the future.
Yeah, and we already have solutions that optimize self-custody. For example, you can have something like Swan Bitcoin. I think they hold one key. Is it them, or is it someone else? And then you hold 2 out of 3 signatures, so you always can assign. If you lose one of your keys, it's not the end of the world. At 21st Capital, my friends work on the smart vault, where if you lose one of your keys after determined time, the number which is calculated in terms of the block time, you're going to have access to your Bitcoin with only one key. That's an interesting thing. So there are things that making it more kind of affordable and accessible to all kinds of people. So maybe there will be no necessity for people to even hold their Bitcoin on exchanges, as it is not now. Maybe people are just scared. I think that is one of the big reasons. I remember my friend Sina did a research. I have forgotten the details of that, but yeah. So one of the hindrances is that people are afraid of storing their own keys because they might mess up something. So when these concerns are addressed, then there is less incentive for people to not hold their keys. And here I am curious, without disclosing any of your private ways of self-custody, how your self-custody has evolved and what has become possible in your Bitcoin lifetime. For example, when I came into Bitcoin, there were light wallets such as Electrum. Electrum was my first Bitcoin wallet. I have this nostalgic love for it all the time, though these days I use Sparrow more on my system than Electrum. I always have Electrum installed somewhere, but mostly I use Sparrow. I use Blue Wallet. Mobile wallets were not to be trusted, were not much of a thing. I mean, you could install Electrum there, but maybe not the best idea. Things have changed a lot since then. Lightning wallets came, Taproot came in, Miniscripts came in since I've come to Bitcoin. And then from an Electrum wallet, whose seed phrases I wrote in my key pass, I just wrote it simply there. So it was just a matter of luck that I didn't get hacked with all the kinds of hacks that people see. So when we are talking about people getting hacked, we are not looking down on them. I have made all the mistakes under the sun. And sometimes I am talking of experience. And now I am relying on hardware wallets, the hardware wallets that you make yourself, flashing your own hardware wallet. One of the favorite guests that we talked on 21st Capital, and I'm looking forward to bring him on here, was the creator of Seed Signer. So I have created my own wallet just for fun. Of course, there are mini scripts that I have played around with, and I want to know, without revealing your private key or your seed phrase or saying exactly where your keys are located or which setup you're using, could you tell us how it's evolved, or tell us something about that? And what do you think the future of the Bitcoin will be? And some part of it I can say I got from the previous description that you provided. So I want to see how your interaction with Bitcoin has evolved in terms of self-custody.
I stay a little bit general with that, and put also experience that I've seen from other Bitcoiners in there. The really interesting thing with Bitcoin is the moment you come into Bitcoin, you first have to discover self-custody at all. So you first have to see that there is something like self-custody. There is something like having your own keys. As I talked before, this was a big moment for me, where before I always trusted institutions. I just had a stock brokerage where I had my stocks, I had a bank where I had my money, and all that was fine. But then all of a sudden you come to know, like, oh, I can have my Bitcoin myself. So self-custody starts at the realization that you can self-custody your Bitcoin. Most Bitcoiners haven't come to that conclusion. If you do self-custody, you are ahead of 97% of all Bitcoiners already. Even if you have a shitty self-custody setup, you're already you're already in the top 3%. So in the top 3%, we have then the people that self-custody. And then at some point, you go through attack vectors of like, oh, I have maybe I'm just laying around here because they are a partner of mine, Bitbox. You have one hardware key, and there you have all the things on. And then you go through the things of like, oh, but what if it breaks? Oh yeah, it might be good to have a metal seed backup. It might be good to have some backup of your hardware wallet. Yeah, but okay, I have this metal backup. I have it laying around at home. What if someone comes and looks at it or makes a picture? Like maybe a friend, or maybe, I don't know, some friend of someone else's friend, and he sees it and like, oh, like free Bitcoin right there. And she snaps a picture, puts the 12 words, 24 words in, let's say you said a blue wallet, and just snaps your Bitcoin out. So you have to protect against that also. Then what if my house burns down and everything is gone? Like even your metal, I know they are fire resistant and stuff like that, but maybe you don't find it. maybe you're living in an apartment building where everything crashes down. Good luck finding that one thing that survived in that fire under a huge thing. So what if that happens? Then you go all of a sudden in multi-signature and say like, okay, I could have a key at a bank. I could have a key at a friend's place. I could have a key at my parents' place. I could have a key at my daughter's place. I could have a key wherever I want to have my key. So then you're like, okay, what do I do? 2 out of 3, 3 out of 6, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, like that. Like 10 out of 20. You can go crazy with it. I don't know if there's any limit actually with it. I never researched that, but there are a lot of possibilities that you can do. So then you come to the conclusion, okay, do I want to trust this person? Do I want to trust this person? What if they mess it up? What if I have a 3 out of 5 and I have, let's say, 2 keys at home, 1 key at the bank? If the bank loses it and my people also mess it up, all of a sudden I'm only having 2 keys and I cannot control my Bitcoin anymore. So those people should also not work together against you. Then you have things like miniscripts now. I think 21st Capital is one of the first that actually does that and implements that, which makes keys available after a certain amount of time, which is an amazing invention. So what I want to say with that is there's a natural evolution. The more you learn about Bitcoin and the more money you get into Bitcoin with what setup you have. And maybe over time you have from single key to multi-key, from multi-key to multi-vendor setup. So you not only have one setup, you have multiple setups with multiple different vendors. Maybe you have a wallet with 21st Capital, maybe you have a wallet with Casa, maybe you have a wallet yourself where you do self-custody and multisig completely yourself without any vendors. Maybe you have it with some other service providers. So there are so many different options that you can go down that you could actually do, that it's only important that you look at what can happen to you and how can you secure yourself against that. How can you make sure that if someone, there's one thing that I've not discussed yet, the $5 ranch attack. What if someone actually knows about your Bitcoin, comes at your home and is threatening to torture you? Do you have something in place for that? Do you have something in place for whatever can happen to you? So you have to think about all the different attack vectors and how you can protect yourself against every single one of that. And with security, and you probably know that better than I do, with security, there's never a 100% secure system. There's always this one small possibility that can go wrong. But make that one small possibility so unlikely that it would be a headline story everywhere if it actually happens, so you can make money with that headline story.
Yeah, that was a good way of putting it, funny. Yeah, and it is important to diversify when it comes to Bitcoin, but not diversify your money in real estate, some crypto, shitcoins, and also Bitcoin, but your Bitcoin in different setups. It's not necessary for everyone. You and I talk about Bitcoin. People know our name. So our situation is different from others. But if anyone wants to come after me, I lost all my Bitcoin in a boating accident. So you're not going to get anything. Every person, based on the amount of money they have and the situation they have, they require different self-custody solutions. One of our audience here said, we'll quickly read this comment: the forcing function for mass adoption might be that survival requires sovereignty. That's scary. I tend to agree with that. And what are your thoughts on that? So we can go to other question.
I love that. Man, that sentence hits hard. I never heard that sentence in that nicely. I might just put that sentence in my book somehow. That's really nice, because it shows, like, the first thing is, like, the forcing function of mass adoption might be that survival requires sovereignty. So this is not only of, like, okay, it's inevitable that we come to the Bitcoin future, but it also shows you have to be prepared to be in that Bitcoin future. Let's take it to an example that most people know about. Let's say the internet. The internet was something where a lot of people benefited a lot. Like a few people, maybe not a lot. A few people benefited a lot from the internet. Most people benefited not that much from the internet, but everyone benefited somehow from the internet. So like all our lives are a little bit better because of the internet, I would say, because you can communicate now with friends across the sea and stuff like that. There are of course also very negative things with it. But we have to adopt and be as sovereign as possible with Bitcoin to be protected and to be as best equipped as possible in a new Bitcoin way. Because what if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, they get hacked and you never get it back? Yeah, you got that Bitcoin is really good and you got that Bitcoin is going far, but you never got Bitcoin because you lost them. So like why did you learn about Bitcoin if you lose them? Like that does not make sense. So yeah, I love that sentence. I think I have to note that down and basically save it for later, because I think I have to think two more times around that sentence. It's really, it's a good one. I love that. Who was that? Cesar. Thank you so much for that.
Caesar, yeah, Caesar. Thank you for that comment, and it might be Cesar based on the locality. And we should really practice sovereignty, and we should do it before it becomes absolutely necessary. We need to learn how to use Bitcoin before we have to use Bitcoin, because then we have to learn it in a rush. Maybe the demand raises for it so much that we cannot get enough, or we end up with a smaller amount. There was this thing that Future Paul once said, one of the Bitcoin developers. He said that he referred to this Arkansas Traveler's lyrics. I even wrote a long post on it on Nostr about it. That Arkansas Traveler is a kind of country music which has different versions of lyrics. One of them is this: that there's a traveler and he goes to a fiddler, and they are at a place and the ceiling is leaking. There's a hole in it and it's raining, and it says that, well, it's raining and we should fix that. And he says that, well, it is raining, we cannot fix it right now, it's raining cats and dogs. And he says, okay, so some other day that it's not raining, why wouldn't you do that? And he said that it doesn't pour when it's not raining, so or it doesn't leak when it's when it's not pouring. We shouldn't be just feel comfortable that everything is okay. The money in our bank account is not going to just go away, though these conditions are nullified for so many of us. Some people might not have gotten such wake-up calls, but we'd better be prepared when such things become normal, and our sovereignty requires us to know much more solutions.
I love that. Yeah. And you have to prepare. That's also with self-custody. I think that's an important step. First, look at your self-custody setup and then imagine the value of it would be 10x. So let's say you have 80,000. Let's say you have one Bitcoin. This one Bitcoin is now not even 100K US dollar, but it's 10x from that. So it's almost like at $1 million. Would you still be comfortable with your self-custody setup if it Bitcoin 10x's tomorrow? And that's where a lot of people actually say like, oh, 10x's tomorrow? I might have to upgrade the one or two things at my self-custody setup. And being prepared for that is very important. And I talked with Rick, actually. He now joined the Bitcoin way, who lost 25 Bitcoin. You know about like Rick Messett, and he told me at the end of the podcast where I interviewed him around his loss of 25 Bitcoins. I interviewed him and he said, invest in proper Bitcoin self-custody before you get hilariously rich. Like make that investment a little bit before that. Obviously, if you have if you have now 3,000 euros in Bitcoin, don't invest in a hardware setup that costs you like 2,000. that does not make sense. But if you have, let's say, 200,000 in Bitcoin, it does make a sense to invest 2,000 euros into self-custody setup that really works, and you can make it with partners, you can make it yourself, you can invest either in education or you can invest in a provider. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, and there's for everyone basically an offer out there, which is amazing to see that the Bitcoin self-custody space is already so big and diverse. So there's no excuses, and if you lose your Bitcoin, it's totally on you. Like I always have a big empathy for people that lose Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, it was their fault.
Yeah, and the more realistic people really accept this, no matter how difficult it is. We had and Chicos on our show, who is an MMA fighter, jiu-jitsu fighter, and fitness instructor. And he lost nearly 1 Bitcoin, and his goal was to become a whole coiner. And he was very clear about the fact that I accept all the responsibility. My friend told me this. My friend told me that. And it is not, and we interviewed him not long after this has happened. For most people, it would take maybe a year or two to accept the responsibility. But he had hit that kind of maturity to say that, yeah, it was not Bitcoin's fault, it was my fault. It was not my friend's fault, it was my fault. And that's a huge realization. What is your responsibility, my responsibility, people who talk about Bitcoin, educate about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin developers? What do you think our role is in making the future be in the most peaceful way, and most people can benefit from Bitcoin this as soon as possible rather than later? What are our roles?
There are 3 things that are really important. The first thing is stay 100% true to yourself. Like never do anything that, like, always act as 100 million people are watching. Like imagine your life as you would be on a 24/7 live stream with 100 million people watching you right now. For a lot of people that would be frightening. Most people would fall under the pressure, but it just like gives you the feeling of, if I do that, is that actually an honorable and integer step that I could take? This is just on like stay true to yourself and stay true to your mission. The second thing is, if you're an educator in this space, you have the responsibility to educate yourself. You can only educate what you learned before. You can only be as smart as your smartest thought in your brain. And how do smarter thoughts come in your brain? You don't wait till they come in there. You have to study. You have to listen to podcasts. You have to listen to audiobooks. You have to read articles. You have to study. You have to sort your things in your brain. And this is really important. To bring things in your brain and educate yourself. And as an educator, it's also very important, the third step. The third step is then, okay, you stay true to yourself, you really get more and more information in your head, but then the third step is learning how to put it in a way that makes sense, to make your information, your education that you got into yourself in a great way, in a valuable piece out there. If you're now, let's say, a TikToker, put it out there in like a 30-second format that makes sense and orange pills people. If you're a book author, make it in a great book that really brings home the thing. If you're a podcaster, put it in a podcast. Whatever way of educating you have to bring it in a perfect terms, perfect analogies, perfect speaking skills, the things that is in your brain. I met so many people that knows so much about Bitcoin and are so clever, but they never learned how to get their knowledge in a great way out to the world. And that's why they are not good educators. They are probably they're smarter than most educators, but they cannot get it out of their brain in a very good way so other people also understand it. So those are the three jobs, in my opinion, that an educator has to do. They have to stay true to themselves at all times. They have to educate themselves all the times. You cannot make, and that's what's bothering me a lot with the education system in general, because I feel like the teachers learn something once and then they teach it for 50 years and never relearn it, never update their thoughts. They just stay there. So as a podcast host, I invest like 1 to 3 hours every day to reading books or listening to podcasts, just to get information, new inspirations in my head. And it doesn't even have to be directly about Bitcoin. I have so many interesting thoughts when I listen to podcasts outside of Bitcoin that remind me of something Bitcoin, and then I write it in my Bitcoin book because I'm like, oh, that's so genius. So just try to broaden your space, your perspective in Bitcoin. And then the last job is, as I said, getting that down. Being good in speaking, not just in the words, but also like how you say the words, is something I'm working right now very hard on, because I don't think I'm a good speaker, but I have a lot of potential because I have the audience, I have the podcast now, and I want to improve on that, and I want to live up to that potential. So learning how to speak in a interesting and educational manner is a very important skill.
Awesome. You actually had thought it through completely. I randomly asked this question, and for the audience, Robin and I didn't arrange the questions. I just sent him the link half an hour before the interview. And yeah, it happened to be a question that you had really thought through. That was an amazing answer. And the third step that you said is something that I daily grapple with as a kind of Bitcoin educator. How do I make it in the simplest terms that not me, someone with that other background also understands it, sometimes someone with that background also understands it? And it's a challenging thing, and that's the thing that requires a lot of attention. Just out of curiosity, outside Bitcoin, what other podcasts attribute to the guy I'm following? I listen a lot to Alex Hormozy, the host of, or the monologuer of mostly of The Game, which is a podcast about entrepreneurship and marketing, sales, and content production. What are the other podcasts outside Bitcoin that you listen to?
I have a unique framework. I think I don't have a podcast that I always listen to. When I want to learn something, I try to figure out who are the 5 most important people in an industry. So, for example, if I go ahead and say, I want to learn everything about Bitcoin, I figure out who are the 5 best people for myself to learn about Bitcoin. And those people are for everyone different. Like, let's be completely clear. And this is also maybe like one thing that you just said, figuring out how to form a message for everyone, it's impossible. So just form a message for one audience group, and another one can form a message for another audience group. And that's why we need as many different voices as possible to hit it from all the different angles, because one person cannot hit it from all the angles. That's for sure. So there are different people that resonate with different. For example, I'm a big Michael Saylor fan. I'm a big Saifedean Ammous fan, and in the beginning, even a big Anthony Pompliano fan. And I have a really good friend of mine who also is a Bitcoiner, and he hates all three of them. It's like really hard for me to even say that word, but like he really is like, they're just about economics, because he's really a tech guy. He likes to listen to the developers of Bitcoin, to the core devs, and really goes deep on a technical level. Which, like they three also cover that, but they're more on the economic side with Seyfried about Austrian economics and stuff like that. So I have that framework when I want to learn something of, let's say, how can I improve my speaking skills? I go in and say, hey, YouTube, Google, ChatGPT, all the tools, how can I learn about speaking, and who are the best people to learn it from? And there's a guy who's called Ving, something like that. I don't know his name, but I then Google his name and just see like 4 podcasts that he did, and listen to them. It's usually like Diary of a CEO. He has really great people on. I like a lot of different podcasts that just go in deeper. For example, for creators, there's Colin and Samir, who make great podcasts with creators. They even had Mark Zuckerberg and Mr. Beast on in one episode. That was a really interesting one, having like Zuckerberg and Mr. Beast in one episode. But it was more entertaining and not as educational. So I don't have a daily podcast that I listen to. I have more of when I want to learn. That's very important. When I want to learn, I have more like there are 5, 6 interesting people that I really enjoy, and I want to learn from them. So in Bitcoin, for example, it could be, let's say, Michael Saylor, Jack Mallers, Seyfried Moose, Larry Lepar, Lynn Alden. Let's say those are our 5 people. Then I just search for different podcasts where they were on, and if they are interesting enough, they usually have a book. Like Michael Saylor does not have a book, not about Bitcoin at least, but Larry Lepar has a book. Seyfried Moose has a book. Lynn Alden has a book. They all have books usually. So if I like the podcast, then I go ahead and go deeper on the book side of things. And this is a framework on how to learn things is really interesting. Figure out who are main people in that industry, listen to podcasts, or sometimes even have own channels. It's like Vin has his own channel and he produces these amazing videos. And Alex Amose is one of the guys that you should listen to if you want to scale a business. If you want to, if you have a business and you struggle with that, I think he's probably number one. Like he's so good in that, and I just it's so funny because I just listened to him before I talked to you, because I had my breakfast and I like to listen to something. And he has a new format now where he brings in business owners, who have a business that is already making some revenue, but this business had like, I don't know, 300,000 in revenue and 100,000 in losses, so made no money. And then he talked about the concept how to get that business up and running in a profitable way. And this is awesome content. Like you can literally learn from someone that does that every day with acquisition.com and does it live with a person. That is like I'm so grateful that we are in an era where we can just learn that. We can just have access to that. That is unbelievable cool. I'm so grateful to have those tools. Imagine pre-printing press, how hard it was to figure out how to build a business, and how easy it is right now. You can start a business from your couch, and you only need a laptop for it. Like that's what you need for a business right now. And this is something that really humbles me, that we live in those amazing times with Bitcoin, with the internet, with all those cool technologies, with AI. Like my podcast would not have been possible in the same quality and quantity without AI. I'm totally honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. So you said that you have 2 hours, and I was like, yeah, I can cover all the questions I have. But out of every discussion that we have, so many other things that are that coming out, and I want to. I really like to talk all about them, about all of them. However, it's better to keep the content as concise as possible so people can consume it easier. Though I believe that for having to kind of discover new aspects of every person, we need to sit down with them and talk in a kind of stress-free environment, which I'm aiming at nurturing on this podcast. Uh, we covered very good bases, and it was a nice coincidence that you also know Alex Hormozy and you follow his content and you know him very well. And I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again so I can cover other things and discover new aspects from your life.
Awesome. I would love to come on a second time because I feel like we just barely got started after, what is it, 1 hour, 40 minutes.
Definitely. That's the way I feel. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who's been with us or listening to this podcast.